start off by saying a bit about what the core changes you've seen in the workplace have been since pre-COVID to now. Like, kind of, what was it like before? What kind of work were you doing, and where are you at now?
So I guess looking over the past nearly 3 years now, first of all, the work we received and the clients we work with changed drastically because all of a sudden everyone could access video, and we were holding meetings over videos on our screens. We'd have to meet people in person. So for us, it's a fantastic advantage as a business. We could speak to anyone in the country or anyone in the world and carry out our work and our strategies and our workplace design with anyone now without having to particularly meet them in person. And we have successfully carried out many projects over the lockdown pandemic period, even without meeting people in person, and successfully delivering projects. So for us, it was a bonus from that point of view. But for the clients, it meant that obviously they were also experiencing the same thing. Everyone was at home, obviously. So what did that mean for the workplace? So I guess the main differences in terms of what that workplace design was, what people expected out of a workplace, the main and obvious differences was that I'd say 2019 beforehand, if you had an office that hadn't been redesigned or refreshed in 5 or 10 years, you'd be looking to expect much more than just open plan desks, some meeting rooms, perhaps client and internal, a tea point, and if you're very lucky, a social space to break out into, have some lunch. I think that's what most people would see as a normal, standard corporate office throughout the UK. And then obviously now, looking forward, I think the expectation now is, and I think people are on board with it, whenever we start a new project, is that you have those things, but we've really ramped up on the collaboration, social side, and the interaction of people. So people now understand why we're using offices. It's to meet people, not just to do desk-based work. Obviously, for some people, that's still main priority if they've got it at home. But now, the breakdown of workspace is typically, obviously, they've still got your open plan desks, but now you've got more drop-in bookable desks, collaboration spaces, more internal meeting rooms, places to take calls, client rooms, multifunction spaces, more social space to meet informally and relax and break out. And then also now more health, wellbeing facilities that deal with a whole range of neurodiverse, different genders, different mental health issues. So the whole range now is being catered for to welcome people back in, show that they're being cared for. And then if a client can successfully deliver an office that's better than someone working at home,
people will choose to come back into it.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's really interesting that you said that it shifted to kind of putting people at the center of it, because at OpenSensors, before the pandemic, people were kind of approaching us with big events kind of coming up, whether it was a lease event, an expansion, growing the team, that kind of thing. Very much needed to understand the baseline, kind of how is the office being used, what do we have space to expand into, kind of all very kind of clinical in a way. But since the pandemic's been going on, the concerns and questions that people have been coming to us with have very much been more about, like you said, people making sure that, we want to make sure that they have all the space they need all the time, not just access to a desk, access to a fridge, that kind of thing. And it's also the challenges that employees face, I guess, have been more centralized. So actually getting those spaces, if we're going to be in a hybrid environment and you don't have your own space, a lot more thought now has to be put into how do we enable people to get to that space quickly and easily without having to do 5 or 6 repetitive tasks at the beginning of the day just to be able to get into your desk type thing. And we found that that's significantly shifted since COVID.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, it's a double-edged sword, I think. Making the better use of real estate requires some element of sharing, and by proxy that then requires some more elements of decision-making and forward planning. So the users of that space and the managers of that space will ultimately have to make more decisions, think about it more to make sure it's used most efficiently.
So what would you say the kind of core concerns or challenges that people are approaching you with now when they say we need to redesign, what would you say the kind of key criteria that like it must do this, it must do this, and it must do that?
I'd say, well, the key ones is being confident with the level of usage.
Mhm.
So if they're going to bite the bullet and say, if they're going to go from what was pre-pandemic a generally one desk per person, so one desk per headcount scenario, you then have to have the confidence that whatever you're basing the future design on, and at the minute we're finding out to be like mostly 50, 60% of a headcount relates to a desk count now, the traditional desk count. It's having the confidence on that. So that's one of the main things. And whether they find that through surveys or sensor data is two ways of doing it. And yes, and then just making sure that people feel safe, obviously, to come back and make them feel worthwhile. So then the management of the whole space and what happens in a workspace now is more key rather than someone just turning up, sitting at a desk, doing a day's work, going home, not thinking about it. If you do that, and you've left the office at the end of the day and you wonder why you ever came in, who did I even speak to, what have I experienced today, is it worth my while? It's then making sure that those things happen as well. So it started happening before the pandemic. There was the new roles of sort of chief employee experience officer. These sorts of roles came into place to make sure that the experience an employee had in the workplace, engaged them. And whether they come in 5 days a week, 1 day a week, 3 days a week, there might be something happening that makes it worth their while and sparks their interest as well at the same time.